flower on the pillows, a flower in the bathroom, like we're important.
Who is that? Maybe she can help us.
We're here! We're in here!
Don't worry. He knows what you're here for. He's not allowed to touch you. He knows that.
My name's Hedwig. I have red socks.
How old are you?
9.
The human brain is the most complex object in the universe.
The only way we're getting out of here is if one of them decides to let us out.
Aren't you the clever one?
Hedwig, could you help us?
Okay.
Hey everybody, welcome to What the Flick. Christy, Matt, Bibbs, Alonso, and the twist is none of us are wearing pants. No, it's it's
You gotta
split.
see my pants.
M. Night Shyamalan is back
Those are
with messing with the audience. He did not mess with me because I didn't see it, but they did. So tell us
Or
about it.
did he?
Maybe you were there. Yeah, so lately, the idea of a new M. Night Shyamalan movie might not inspire a whole lot of excitement based on movies like The Last Airbender and Lady in the Water, and it's been a while since The Village. It's been a while since a really, really great M. Night Shyamalan movie. This is why this is very exciting, because it's really good. So James McAvoy stars as a man named Kevin, who suffers from dissociative identity disorder. He has about 24 different personalities within him. And he kidnaps these 3 high school girls from a mall birthday party and brings them back to his underground lair. They are played by Haley Lee Richardson, Jessica Sula, and the star of The Witch, Anya Taylor-Joy. And they have to figure out how to get out of there based on figuring out who he is at any particular moment in time. Take a look.
An individual with multiple personalities can change their body chemistry with their thoughts.
Someone's coming for you.
What will happen when he unlocks the potential of his brain?
There is no limit to what he can become.
Tonight is a sacred night. You will be in the presence of something greater. The world will understand now. The beast is real.
He's done awful things to people, and he'll do awful things to you.
M. Night Shyamalan's career is fascinating because it was bigger movies, as big as it could possibly get. And then the last couple of his movies, this one and The Visit, are much smaller. And they're way more in his wheelhouse. They feel way more like just kind of cool Tales from the Crypt episodes. Like high concept, kind of good characters. He has a very good... I like the theatricality with which he presents his stories in terms of not only the performances, but honestly just the imagery. It can be very operatic, even though the stories are very intimate. So I totally fell under the spell of this sleazy, irresponsible kidnapping movie, and I dug it.
Well, it's all the virtuoso camera work is on display in a smaller setting like this, right? So he's been a great admirer of Hitchcock for a long time, and that's obvious, down to his inserting himself in cameos in every single movie. So that can be on display, and the way he plays with this space, this very enclosed space, is very tense. And James McAvoy is great in this. And Bibbs and I were talking a bit before we started this taping here about how mental health advocates are going to respond to this. But unquestionably, like, it's a tour de force performance because he has to make each of these people distinct. And they are. And even when they are darkly funny, there's still a chilling and often quite sad element to their personalities when you know what the origin is of them, you know, why he created them as this buffer within himself. So it's a very impressive performance technically and dramatically, in that they are all different, and he has to sort of turn on a dime or within a single breath go from one to another. It sounds kind of gimmicky, and it's a whole lot of scenery chewing, but it is endlessly entertaining.
Yeah, I was impressed with this movie. There's a lot going on here, and every time I thought I figured it out and knew where it was going, it would go in a different direction, but not in a way that it didn't kind of make sense. You know, it would find new ways to, every time I thought it would, you know, oh, okay, I now know how this is going to resolve itself. And oh no, there's some other way that it could have gone. Wow. And it does that really well all the way up until the end. And I think this movie works really well. It's, like Bibb says, it's a smaller movie, and I think that is more in Shyamalan's wheelhouse. I've been thinking for years, the ideal vehicle for him would be to bring back the Twilight Zone and only give him 30 minutes, right?
Well, he's doing Tales from the Crypt now.
Yeah, which would be great. Don't give him 2 hours. It's too much time. Don't give him 2 hours. Don't give him too much money. Give him smaller stars, smaller budgets, smaller spaces, and he can work miracles. And this movie, look, there are some problematic elements. The way it treats mental illness is questionable. The way it treats Anya Taylor-Joy's backstory is highly questionable. But it all serves the story he's telling, and in spite of myself, it works. It works really well, and this is his best movie in a long, long time. I thought this was really interesting and tense and surprisingly funny in places.
I was thrilled by the incidents, the way that he weaves the story, the way that he introduces new plot elements, just the suspense of how will they get out, when will they get out. All of that stuff works. The context, you're right, is somewhat troubling sometimes, and I think it's good to go in with just a sort of a reminder that I don't think the people who made this movie understand everything there is to understand about multiple personality disorder. But I think by a certain point in the film, I think it becomes clear that that's kind of not what the movie is about. I think you can look at the film and potentially see a film that is using a mental health issue as a source of horror in a way that maybe isn't very responsible. But I think at some point in the film, I think it finally just says, given the context of what we're seeing, this makes sense. This works. This actually functions, and this is the kind of movie in which we can explore our anxieties. What else is horror, if not an excuse to explore our fears, the things that make us uncomfortable, to heighten them to an extent that they create entertainment and catharsis. So I was willing to go along with it after a while, but I was a little uncomfortable for a bit. But honestly, the more I thought about it, the more I went home and I was kind of mixed. I was split, if you will. And eventually, I came to the conclusion that I do really dig this movie. I think it is a very well-crafted thriller. I think it's a little fucked up, but that's a good reason to go to a thriller.
As a kidnapping thriller, how does it compare to 10 Cloverfield Lane?
Which I never saw.
I would say it's better than 10 Cloverfield Lane.
Well,
I don't know that I agree with that. I think it's at least on a par. I don't know. I think
There's a lot of
10
similarities.
Cloverfield Lane is a better film than this one. Partly because I think 10 Cloverfield Lane doesn't have the more problematic elements that this one has.
Right.
But this one, like 10 Cloverfield Lane, there's a lot of questions in 10 Cloverfield Lane. It doesn't let you know what's really happening. It keeps you in the minds. It both these movies withhold a lot of information.
Right.
But not so much that it's a gimmick and tricking you. It's withholding.
You're forced to see things through the eyes of the captor, right? I mean,
somewhat.
Captive more really.
Well, but even then, this one in particular plays with perspectives in a way that, yes, you're mostly seeing it from Anya Taylor-Joy's perspective, and you're seeing some of it from the perspective of the therapist, which is a really interestingly written character, and that's a character that, amongst the things, just the way he portrays that character and the way that character is on the script shies away from a lot of cliches. And I think one of the things this movie does really well is like 10 Cloverfield Lane, is it sidesteps all of the cliches that you expect out of a kidnap thriller, as opposed to something like the, what was the Halle Berry 911?
Oh, right.
The call. Right? The call is, or as you called it, dat wig.
Dat wig.
The call is full of cliches, and you see all of it happening a mile away, and it's all fine. This movie, part of why you're on the edge of your seat, to be cliched about it, is you kind of, those of us as savvy moviegoers and who see movies all the time, this one's hard to predict. But it doesn't do what some movies do, where it's it takes this right angle that comes out of nowhere. It doesn't make any sense. And I'm resisting using the word earn because the commenters get mad when I use that. This movie earns all of the stuff that it does it does in the script. And it worked. I think.
And has Betty Buckley.
I was gonna
She's
say,
Betty
we
Buckley's
gotta talk
great.
about her. She's totally, and she brings a much needed source of like perspective and warmth and decency and kindness to a movie that's kind of brutal and kind of nasty a lot of the time. And she provides really important perspective and context to understand him and his disorder. And I know we don't agree on this, but I think she celebrates this person for who he is rather than condemning him, and I appreciate that.
She does do that. I think it's the movie itself and its overall portrayal of the condition that maybe has that interpretation. But I think when you see the film, you're going to see that there's a lot of different angles that it's not really, we can't really talk about. This isn't like a typical M. Night Shyamalan film where like, what a twist.
There's
but
not
like,
a twist.
Not really in any.
There's not a big twist.
Not in any way that you're used to in any rate. But like when you see how the plot plays out, you'll be glad that you didn't know what happens later in the film because it is trying to surprise you in how the story unfolds. I will somewhat disagree with the idea that her character isn't a cliche because she's actually serves a plot function that like a lot of Stephen King characters fulfill. But to tell you exactly which one would be itself kind of a spoiler. Okay. But if you're familiar with the horror genre, you might see where she's going.
Is it like the psychiatrist who comes in at the end of Psycho to explain everything?
That's not actually what it is. I will also disagree with the idea that, and I said I don't think 10 Cloverfield Lane is a better movie because I feel like the ending of 10 Cloverfield Lane recontextualized the film in a way that made it less valuable to me, that made the film work less well for me personally. And I think whereas at the end of Split, made some decisions that I may find difficult and may need to spur some conversation, but I thought there was a consistency to its narrative vision, if you will, to its themes, that ultimately made it a better overall experience for me.
I want to mention really fast too how great Anya Taylor-Joy is in this, just in her stillness. It's really tough to just be still and quiet on film, and when her face, just her presence, she's chilling. And we want to root for her, but there's also something kind of unsettling about her presence as well.
Right, she does that in Morgan really well.
Yeah, and she's so great in The Witch.
But,
so she's really great in this, and she's not your typical horror heroine. I mean, this is a straight up horror movie for Shyamalan, which is unusual, but the other girls are kind of like your horror, taking their clothes off horror heroines.
Well, is she final girl?
I'm not going to tell you anything.
That would also be, that's literally a spoiler.
That would be a spoiler. Okay, I haven't seen it. I
I'm not going to say anything, Alonzo.
Sorry.
Why would you ask me that question?
Sorry.
So, but she is.
Come on.
It's not how I meant it. I meant the type of character, not the
that type of character is defined by how they are.
Yes. Okay. You're right. Okay. Yes. Fine.
So I have a number, and it's a 7. Because I too left feeling a little icky.
Yeah.
A little icky and a little unsettled, and maybe that's the purpose of horror, but I felt like it's a little exploitative in the way it milks the backstories for thrills. I felt a little icky about it, but still was totally entertained.
Yeah,
so.
It's for a movie that's got some stuff that people are going to be, offended by and have problems with. It's effective in spite of some of its subject matter. I give it a 7.5.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I also gave it a 7.5.
You did.
I think, again, you're going to be confronted with some material, with some ideas that might make you a little uncomfortable. That is the purpose of the genre, and I think ultimately the film gets away with it, even though maybe not always in the moment.
Okay, so our average is a 7.3. And where is it?
It's in the 70s right now on the Tomatometer.
There you go.
You'll need to take as many showers as they have personality.
Oh my God.